So a couple of days ago, I made a video basically talking about how the Pistons would regret trading away Sekou Doumbouya, and it went well. A lot of people watched it, and a lot of comments were left that I really looked into, and a lot of them were actually responding and saying that I was wrong. And I thank you guys, man. Honestly, I thank you guys so much for all those comments. Thank you guys for watching, even if you're not subscribed. I promise you, if you're one of those guys that commented, this video will be worth your while, okay? Because I'm going to go over all of the moves that General Manager Troy Weaver did for the Detroit Pistons. And this is all dating back to November 2020. And man, that's less than a year ago, and the amount of moves is staggering. It really is. And to those that are either on the fence or haven't really kept up with the news and updates around Detroit's roster changes, my goal for you today is to show you what I've been shown over the last couple of hours, and that is how the Detroit Pistons have done a stellar job rebuilding this franchise. In such a short time span, he's put his team in a much better position. So, when I made that initial take that they would regret trading him away, I did not know how much went into this rebuild that the Pistons are currently on, and I have to say, I'm wrong. I'll admit it to you guys, I'm wrong. I don't think the Pistons are going to regret it because the Pistons are being steered in the right direction and they have very reliable front office that could really transform this team not only from a aspiring playoff team that could potentially make the play next season, but a playoff contender in the coming years. And with that, I've dragged out the intro for too long and let's get into it. So now we have to start in November 16th, 2020, okay? So the offseason is in full swing. The draft hasn't happened yet, but a lot of deals are being made. And one of those deals happened to be the Detroit Pistons trading the guard Bruce Brown to the Brooklyn Nets for Ford Zanan Musa and the 2021 second round pick. And 2 days later, you have the Utah Jazz now agreeing to a trade where they give away their center Tony Bradley and a 38 pick to the Detroit Pistons for future considerations. Now, they ended up waiving Tony Bradley just a couple days later. Now, we're still on November 18th, and something big happened, okay? This is a monumental shift that essentially showed us that the Pistons were doubling down on rebuilding this team, and this is where Trevor Ariza was traded by the Houston Rockets, and they also traded away the number 16th pick of the 2020 draft to Detroit for a future first round pick. Part of that deal now became that the Detroit Pistons had to trade away Christian Wood via a sign and trade. That ended up giving them a 2021 second round pick from the Lakers. And we'll get into the draft now, November 19th. Killian Hayes is picked 7th by the Pistons. Now, because of the Houston trade, that meant that the number 16 pick was Detroit's pick. And they have the rights to whoever was picked, and that would end up being Isaiah Stewart. But then something else happened in the draft, and that's when it was announced that Luke Kennard was to be traded to the Clippers in a free team deal that landed the Pistons with the 19th overall pick of that same draft and Rodney Magruder. And they ended up picking Sadiq Bey at that 19th pick. And that's how they got Sadiq Bey, essentially trading away Kennard. And they ended up also trading Kiri Thomas and Tony Snell to Atlanta for Dwayne Dedmon. Now, 2 days later, Dedmon was waived by the Pistons. And so I guess the Detroit Pistons were just trying to trade away assets to make space for the new players that they were going to acquire. And the next day, they acquired Mason Plumlee in a 3 years, $25 million contract. And they also acquired Jahlil Okafor that same day. And the next day, the Detroit Pistons trade away Trevor Ariza, who they recently got a couple of days ago, to OKC, and they received Delon Wright. This was a free team trade. Again, the next day, they acquired Jeremy Grant on a 3 year, $60 million contract, okay? And then you see the Pistons doing the same thing again, where they traded Tony Bradley, who they recently got from the Jazz, to the Sixers to get Zaire Smith, and they ended up waiving Zaire Smith 2 days later. November 27th now, Josh Jackson Jr. got acquired. A couple days later, December 2nd, Wayne Ellington got acquired. And now the season begins December 20th, and they waive Zanan Musa to trim the roster to 15 spots. And 7 days later, they announced that the team had signed guard Frank Jackson to a two-way contract. And then February hits, And boy, oh boy, oh boy, people were talking about this one. The Knicks reached an agreement on a trade to acquire Detroit Pistons guard Derrick Rose and reunite him with his coach, Thibodeau, right? And the Knicks sent Dennis Smith Jr. and a 2021 second round pick via the Hornets to Detroit. And you'll see how these second round picks played out. Now, March 5th was another big day where Blake Griffin forfeited $13.3 million and agreed to be bought out by the Pistons. And that's when eventually he ended up landing in Brooklyn. And now, a week later, March 12th, the Pistons had agreed to trade Svi Mikhailuk and a 2027 second round draft pick to the OKC Thunder. And they acquired Hamidou Diallo. So that already is a big level up, okay? So they traded away Mikhailuk, who averaged 6.9 points that year. And Diallo, if you guys don't remember, he was having a breakout season, averaging 12 points a game during that season with the OKC Thunder, and then also playing well with the Pistons during the latter end of the season. And now you have the Pistons trading away Delon Wright on March 25th, and they traded him away for Corey Joseph, Sacramento's 2024 second round pick, and Lakers' 2021 second round pick. And that second round pick, I won't spoil it to you, but they got a potential gem. Now the season's over. Detroit doesn't make the playoffs, so not much happened since then. The day before the draft, the Detroit Pistons had agreed to trade away Mason Plumlee, which was a very big trade for them because they had him on a big contract. Pistons had a 37th overall pick, and they gave that away to the Charlotte Hornets, and they got in return the 57th pick. But the Pistons, I think, saw that Plumlee just wasn't fitting with their long-term plan, and when you see this new look Pistons, you'll realize that this team has a lot of room to grow, and that a lot of the players that they traded away were essentially going to hinder that. And I think Plumlee was one of those players that they looked at and said, look, we're going to have to trade him away because we need more room to grow, and he's not going to cut it for us. Now, the draft happens 2021, and this is where a lot of the trades for those picks that happened last year come into play. They won the lottery, so they ended up picking Cade Cunningham, who is a stud. And then they didn't really have a pick until the second round. And man, the second round is where things get interesting, okay? So they picked up Isaiah Livers with the 42nd pick, and that pick came from the D Rose trade. And then they picked 52nd pick, and this one is really an exciting pick for the Pistons. Luka Garza, and he comes in from the Delon Wright trade via the Kings. And when you look at Livers and Garza, they both shot the ball over 40% from the three-point line. That is impressive. Those are definitely great assets to have in a team that is looking to rebuild, okay? And then they had the 57th pick that they got from the Hornets, and they picked up Kobe Vika, who later decided to play in Europe and signed a 3-year deal over there. So August 2nd, now we have the re-signings and all that jazz. You have Corey Joseph being re-signed for 2 years, $10 million. You have Trey Lyles signed for 2 years, $5 million. And you have these moves coming 2 days after the Pistons waived Joseph. And they waived him because he was set to make $12.6 million. And the team just wanted to waive him before so that they could pay him less. And so the same day, you have Kelly Olynyk, a big signing for the Pistons, 3 years, $37 million. And you have 2 days later, Saben Lee returning to the Pistons on a 3-year deal. And Saben Lee, in the 48 games he had last year, averaged 5.6 points, 3.6 assists, and 2 rebounds in 16 minutes. 16 minutes! And he only started for the Pistons 7 times. So it really did pay off for them getting that 30th pick from the Utah Jazz last year. And then 2 days later, you have Magruder being waived by the Pistons, and the Lakers officially announcing that Ellington was going to sign with them. So that leaves an extra room for somebody. And 5 days later, what do you know? Magruder comes back and gets re-signed by the Pistons. And then on August 17th, the Detroit Pistons signed both Luka Garza and Chris Smith. Oh, did I tell you guys that they have a guy named Chris Smith on a 2-way contract? You have the Pistons announcing that they were going to re-sign Hamidou Diallo. Very great re-sign. A player with great potential. Now, we're going back to the present moment where 3 days ago from the time this is uploaded, Detroit traded away Sekou Doumbouya and Jahlil Okafor for DeAndre Jordan and the future second-round picks. 4 of them. Okay, so now the Pistons have even more second-round picks to work with. And they're going to apparently buy out Jordan and That was a lot to go through, and I know that may have been confusing for a lot of you guys. Most of you probably clicked off this video halfway through because I'm sure that was very boring to listen to, but I just wanted to go through a lot of these deals because the Pistons really did transform this team in less than a year. Every player on this Detroit Pistons roster has been acquired as early as November 2020. As early as November, with the first player being Killian Hayes. Are you kidding me? Like, that's insane. I gotta tip my hat to the Pistons because they did this right under our noses. And what's funny is a lot of the people in the media were criticizing the Christian Wood trade and the 2020 offseason for the Pistons overall, saying that they had the worst offseason out of all the NBA teams. And this is something that even the executives voted on. So you can see that when covering the Pistons, the media did a poor job, and I fell into it thinking that the Pistons were, being a bad team, a bad franchise being led by a very poor front office. And I apologize to Pistons fans for coming at that last video with misinformation and just straight up ignorance because I was ignorant on the Pistons and what they were doing. And I did love Sekou because as a fellow French speaker, I love to see French guys thrive, okay? And personally, I just want to see that guy thrive. And I thought to myself, Pistons gonna regret it. Pistons gonna regret it. And a petty side of me wanted to make a video just saying it. Pistons gonna regret it. It was so ignorant of me to say that. And look, I don't know if I've convinced anybody, but you guys have managed to convince me, and I think that's what matters. So thank you guys again for watching this video. I hope you guys have a great day. And if you guys want to watch a similar video to where I analyzed what the Grizzlies did, here you go. Watch that. I think it'll be very interesting for you to listen to that because they are also led by a very smart front office, and I go into it a bit deeper than I should have. So go check that out. Bye bye.